Good evening and welcome to the Atlanta Autism Consortium's free educational outreach program, A Father's Journey with Autism. My name is Michael Morrier, and I'm the Program Committee Chair for the Atlanta Autism Consortium Board of Directors. The AAC is a nonprofit organization dedicated to creating collaboration and conversations throughout the Metro Atlanta autism community and beyond. Throughout the year, we host free educational programs just like this on a wide variety of topics. The entire AAC Board of Directors are so glad all of you have been able to join us tonight. Before we get started, just a few brief housekeeping notes. Please note that as an attendee, your microphone and camera will remain muted, but you can ask any questions you have throughout the program in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. We'll be saving all questions for the Q&A portion of our presentation in order for the presenters to provide you with the materials prepared. Additionally, this session is being recorded and will be posted on the AAC's YouTube channel in a few weeks. We will email out notification when it's available, as well as any materials and contact information from our speakers. The information will be sent to the email address you used when you registered for tonight's program. Tonight's presentation is being provided by two fathers from the Atlanta area, Mr. Nathan Cathbar and Mr. Brandon Gardner. Nathan Cathbar has been married to his wife, Katie, since 2018. They have four children, William 8, Journey 6, Braden 5, and Grayson 5. Nathan's background includes teaching, leadership, and counseling while serving in social work and various churches. He's the co-founder of The Village, which we'll be hearing more about tonight. His wife Katie's background includes leadership and teaching while serving as a pediatric nurse practitioner. Brandon Gardner is a community engagement leader with Kaiser Permanente, Georgia, where he focuses on building partnerships and volunteer initiatives that advance health equity across Metro Atlanta. He's also the co-founder of The Village, a peer support group for fathers of children with autism. His perspective is shaped by both his professional work and community impact and his lived experience as a husband and father of a son and daughter, including a child on the autism spectrum. I'm pleased to welcome both Nathan and Brandon and happy to be able to share their experiences with the AAC community. Welcome, Brandon and Nathan. I'm going to pass it over to you so you can start tonight's program.
Well, thank you, Michael, so much for bringing us together today. It's an honor and privilege to be here tonight with one of my great friends and co-founders, Nathan. We didn't really discuss who was going first, but since I'm talking, I guess I'll kick it off for us.
Go for it, yeah.
But again, I'm Brandon Gardner. I am happy to be here and happy to actually share my story and my journey of kind of where I am in this process of raising a child on the autism spectrum. So, as Michael mentioned, I am a proud husband. My wife and I, Ashley and I, have been married for over 12 years. We do have two kids. I have a daughter. Her name is Harper, who is 10 and who is not on the autism spectrum. Then I have my son, Sage, who is 7. And of course, he is considered level two autism, and then also he has ADHD. And so, just to kind of how we found out that he got diagnosed with autism, very excited when we found out that I was having a son. It was at a perfect time in my life. My mother just passed away. And so being able to be in that moment to know that, hey, I'm having a baby boy, having this legacy to be able to pass down. Very excited at that time period. But as Sage continued to grow up, we really didn't notice everything. Sage, as a baby, he cried a lot, which I thought was very normal at that time. But as he got older, there were just certain milestones that his teacher noticed that he wasn't necessarily hitting in preschool at the time. And so his teacher, who we love, was one of our great friends. He was just like, Sage is hugging a little bit too tight. He's playing by himself and he's not saying certain words that a lot of other kids are saying. And we're like, okay, well, she gave us a recommendation to go to talk to his pediatrician. Pediatrician recommended for us to do a program called Babies Can't Wait. Great program, very tough during COVID time because here is a young child talking to a screen, which was very interesting at that time period too. But also during that, we realized that it was also recommended for us to get him tested with autism. And so talked to the pediatrician, she gave us a recommendation. And, we did the whole testing process. And, a few weeks later, of course, it came out that Sage was on the autism spectrum, also with on top of having ADHD too. And so when I first saw that, it really hurt me a lot. A lot of angry thoughts came in my head. I was just questioning about like, what does this mean? Because I never really knew the whole what autism actually meant. But also just selfishly, like, is he going to get married? Is he going to be able to drive a car? Are we able to have this father and son bond that I had hoped for? And then just also the scary thing is just, how are people going to judge my son in this process? And so, all these selfish thoughts. And then it was hard enough trying to talk to my family members because, sometimes in the Black community, we don't want to accept things for what it is. And so, they were just like, oh, he'll grow out of it. He's just a boy. This is why he's behaving on top of that. And so, and even trying to talk to my wife also just, we're on the same page. We love our son, but it was just certain things that I don't think she felt at that time as a father, raising a son too. And so as we were going through this process, we tried ABA, we did in-home ABA. We transitioned him more into a special needs classroom in the public school system. But it was just a process all the time. It was, Sage is screaming and yelling, and Sage is being aggressive. Sage is doing this, Sage is doing that, like calling from work, having to go pick him up. There was all these things that was just going on with Sage, and it was just a very, very tough experience. And so we decided to pull him out of public school and did full-time ABA therapy. And you would think that ABA, I'm a huge advocate of ABA, so I don't want you to think that I'm not. But, ABA is also a trial and error situation too for a lot of parents. And so the new ABA clinic that we went to, we were hoping us pulling him out of school um, would be the best thing for him and do full-time ABA. And so we noticed that this ABA clinic in particular, his aggression was getting a lot worse. And they decided to pull him out or kick him out of ABA. And so that was just another thing that my wife and I had to deal with. And so, just thinking through this journey of raising a son, and also a Black son at that too, the physical aggression, the verbal aggression hurt me a lot because, I don't want to have my child unable to control his emotions because of this disability, and the world is looking at him differently because he can't control that. And so that was a very tough situation for us too. But just kind of fast forward a little bit, we found another ABA clinic that we kept him in full time. So he kind of missed most of kindergarten due to being an ABA, and he's made a lot of strides. He is communicating a lot more. He still has breakdowns a lot too, but it's not as much as it used to be. So I have to also celebrate those small wins. And then also me and his relationship. We're like trying to who's gonna be the king of the household. So it's always sometimes this constant battle. But one thing I realize about just with him in general is that sometimes I can't beat on his level. Like if he's getting mad, I can't get mad back. And that takes a lot of patience because sometimes I want to get to his level. But it really just has helped our relationship a lot more. And also just for me to realize like, I had this dream and this vision of what I assumed that I want our relationship to be, but also just accepting my son for who he is too, and also just finding a lot of grace and a lot of things in common. I wasn't the athletic kid growing up, and so Sage is not the athletic kid either. And so for us to be able to bond over, like toys and comics and cartoons and things like that, and video games has been a very beautiful experience for us too. But I know Nathan and I will talk about the village later. But community has been very important. I would just kind of just say that it's been very important to build community with people who understand this journey because everyone else doesn't get it. And it is a trial and error too. Like every day is not gonna be perfect. And I tell Nathan all the time, even on those bad days, that's just a bad day. And let's think about how many good days outweigh the bad days and for us to kind of keep pushing forward too. So that is a little bit about my journey and my story, and I'll pass it over to my partner in crime, Nathan.
Oh, thanks, brother. Yeah, and great to be here tonight to share this story, both like on the personal side, just as Brandon shared his story, and then what we're endeavoring together. So, yeah, my name is Nathan Casper, and the beautiful thing too about this is that just as autism is a spectrum, that you've met one kiddo, you've met one kiddo. I've seen a quote. There's commonality, but there's also uniqueness. And that's the same thing with Brandon's story and my story, is that there's a common thread, but there's also a uniqueness to each of our stories. That's a beautiful thing. So yeah, I've been married to Katie since 2018, and we have four kiddos, as Michael had mentioned. One of the differences is that our kiddos are adopted. When we adopted William at 4, we went into that knowing that he had autism, and so that's an important thing to mention because when parents are on this journey, the process can hit differently to when in Brandon's situation, you have a child, and then when you find that diagnosis out, it can be a punch to the gut because you're not expecting it. There can be grief, there can be anger, there can be questioning, there can be blame, guilt, all these different things, and it's important to acknowledge that. And that's it's different from our journey because we knew going into that, been tough. But it's also important for me to share that because, for instance, with Brandon, we can relate to one another, and that's a particular thing I can't relate to that he had to go through. But then there's other dads who can relate to that. So it's important to say that. uh, our other three kiddos are neurotypical, and I'll mention something on that because it's important as dads to navigate that neurotypical and special needs bond between siblings. So we adopted William at 4, and it's been a journey of pivoting. We've gone public school, we've gone ABA, and that journey has been challenging, but also wonderful as well. And ABA is one of those things I really think that it's you find what works for you. And if ABA works, great. If it doesn't, another direction. It's been, just as Brandon shared, really a game changer for our son, William. He is level 3 and nonverbal. The nonverbal certainly doesn't mean he can't communicate, just in not the quote unquote normal sense. Uh, been in different ABA clinics, and in the one he began last year, he has really grown both from a socialization standpoint and a communication standpoint using an AAC device. Just picture, basically, if we had a tablet, that's his words. We can point to, and it'll verbalize what he is wanting. And that's been tremendous for him to now have that voice that, for instance, myself, I take for granted being able to communicate wants, needs, feelings. Um, Going back to what I mentioned about normal, one of my uh, things I like to say is that the world puts people into two categories, normal and not normal. This may sound harsh, but my thing is screw normal, embrace different. With our kiddos, it's a different processing system. It's not less than, it's just different. And so, how do we embrace different? Going back to just the personal side of things, the journey has been hard. It's difficult. Parenting in general is difficult. Special needs, just like Brandon said, is a different level because unless someone is walking that road, they just can't get it. And it's nothing on their end that's negative. It's just like with anything, until you're walking a particular path, you can empathize, which is good. You can support, which is good, but you just can't get it. I can tell Brandon something and he can say, I get it. For instance, there's been times, and what I'm about to say is not a good thought that I had, but it's a human thought. Because as a dad in particular, this is for moms too, but we're talking about dads tonight, it's an emotional journey as well that you get hit at different times and it can drain you. So I remember thinking at times, man, it'd be nice if I didn't have a special needs son. Not a good thought. I wouldn't trade William for the world. He doesn't need to be cured. He's not nothing wrong with him. He doesn't have an illness. They even had someone try to pray away a demon that he doesn't have a demon. That's a whole other discussion. My point is that the journey is difficult from a mental standpoint, and you reach some of those moments where you start thinking in an unhealthy way. But I can share that with other dads like Brandon, and they can empathize with that and they can say, man, I get it. And they're not judging me for thinking that thought. They can hear me out. And that is why it's important, just as Brandon hit on earlier, of having this community of dads. It's a grind. There's a lot of things that are just not normal. Again, I know I said I don't like that word, but it's for discussion's sake, it's the best way to describe it. If you're going out to eat, if you're going on a vacation, it's not as relaxing as just taking neurotypical kids. And this is not pity. This is just trying to create awareness and education for folks outside of the special needs world that when you go out, my anxiety will sometimes get up. This has nothing to do with William. He's perfect as he is, but there's to say different behaviors or noises or messiness or the ability to sit still. That is just a part of that daily grind. It's a beautiful grind in the sense, but it's a grind still. Patience. My wife is a lot more patient than me, and I need to work on that. Our daughter loves Frozen, loves it, loves it, loves it. And as many of you, not all of you listening today, are probably familiar with that part of Frozen, that song, it says, let it go. And I think that's an important part that I still need to work on. That as a dad, sometimes the best thing for me to do is just think to myself, who cares? And just let whatever it is at that moment, let it go. Have a different perspective of releasing and just letting it take its course. Sometimes with William, and this is not an analogy I can take credit for, it's like a set of gears that for whatever reason just become unhitched. That's not even the right word, but just go with me on that. And it can just take time for them to come back together. Time. You could present him with his most favorite thing, and it's not going to fix it. It's just literally the way the brain processes, the way the brain resettles itself. It just takes time. And those moments have gotten better. But that's part of being a dad for me is I need to grow in patience, need to have a perspective of just letting go. And then also having that perspective of looking at the big picture versus the here and now. Because sometimes you can get so caught up in this box of thinking that you can't really see the bigger scope of things. And you can even though Brandon and I are part of advocating for this world, I have found myself putting William in a box. And shame on me for that. He has shown that he is smart, he is sharp, just like Sage is. It's just a different processing system. So just to kind of wrap up on this side of things, what's I wrote some things down. What's my heart as a dad? I want to help. I want to grow as a dad. How do I do that with community of other dads that can encourage, but also speak truth into what I'm going through. I want to help other dads to grow this, and I want society to grow in their awareness as well. And so that's important for having things like this. And thank everyone for joining this because it takes both worlds, those that are living in the world of autism and those that aren't, but that have a heart for it. And when we come together, we can really start impacting our circles of influence, our communities to have the right perception of autism, not what, say, we've grown up hearing about, not what social media says, not what politics says, not what we're like, what actually is it? And then we can go out and provide for these amazing, amazing individuals that I tell you what can teach us so much. So, last thing I'll say is that it's a team. My wife and I are a team in this. I mean, I know I'm speaking for Brandon, like him and his wife Ashley are, but it takes that. It takes people to help out. Okay, we're going to divide and conquer. Katie is my best friend. Wouldn't want to be with any other person besides her. And at the same time, it's important for dads, just as it is for moms, to have that time with other dads, and for those moms to have that time with other moms on this journey. So it's a hard journey, but it's a journey that's worth it, because nothing in life that's truly worth it is ever easy. So I will shut up now, and now we'll kind of go on to the side of the village.
Okay. Before you move on, because you both kind of mentioned it, and there was a question in the chat on, and I'm going to kind of paraphrase and add to the question, but how did you or do you deal with society's views of autism as a parent of a child with autism? And do you think you deal with it in a different way than, say, your wives deal with it? And like, how do you think that perception is based on being a father versus a mother, I guess?
Sure, man. Whoever hit that question, that's
Yeah,
a
that's a
solid one right
very,
there.
very good question.
You want me to go first, or you want to go first, man? You want to take it?
Yeah, I mean,
Go for it, man. I'll piggyback off you.
yeah. So for me, I think society has um, that judgmental thing has always been in my head too, especially if we're in public, and Sage has a tantrum, or we're with family and there's judgment. Are we being good parents and things like that too? So that has kind of weighed heavily on me at times. But I think to Nathan's point, he said a lot earlier, is kind of like, I'm kind of like, who cares? Who gives a crap right now? Because at the end of the day, I know my son. My wife and I know our son. We know what we're doing is best for him. And you people can think, this is not the right way to parent, but this is the right way for our child. And so it's just, for me, it really honestly just took that mental mindset and mental time to kind of just kind of think through that too. And I know there was a second question, but I'll let Nathan go ahead and answer that question too.
No, that's good, man. Yeah, yeah. Again, whoever asked it, it's an important one for me. A lot of the times, I'll be honest, like Katie handles it better than me. I get pissed off inwardly when people just are staring. Like in all our advances of society, kindness has still not advanced to where it needs to be. In general, and specifically with special needs, everyone is entitled to a look, because it is different when sounds, when actions, behaviors. It could be a SIV biting the hand, it could be yelling, a breakdown. So everyone's entitled to look. It's that continuous stare that pisses me off. Just being real. I struggle with, man, I should say something, or things like that, to where my wife speaks wisdom into me about, let's let that go. What she doesn't mean is that there's not a time and place. If someone says something, then that would be the time to engage on, of course, defending your child. But it is, I struggle with anxiety in general. And so in those moments, just, how do I phrase this? Being a special needs dad has also struggled with anxiety of just being out and wonder if this happens, wanting to make sure I'm handling it appropriately. So if that kind of makes sense. So it is a struggle. And kindness is lacking.
And then,
Okay.
Mike, I think the other question was about how do we parent or something like that.
Well,
Oh, just
different. Oh,
how do you just kind of think? And I think you both answered it, but kind of like how do mothers, in a way, and I don't want to like stereotype like all mothers do this or all fathers do that, but you know, um, do you think mothers handle those types of things differently than fathers do? And I think you both kind of answered that. Is
Yeah, I would say I mean, for me, I know my wife, she is a lot more patient. She is a lot more comforting and I wouldn't say caring, but that physical love and that touch, more forgiving at times than I would definitely say for myself. Um, I know for me, I mean, I'm a child, I'm a millennial, child from the 90s. And so, if you messed up, grandma would tell you to go get a switch or a belt and that type of discipline back in the day. Not saying that I do that to my kids, but, there have been times where, I think about not saying the way that I was raised was the right direction, but, being firm and being, putting my foot down, and sometimes putting my foot down could look mean and things like that. And so I know my wife and I have had disagreements about, I say it's not raising my tone. She'll say it's raising my tone. I'm saying it's being firm. So there's been those type of disagreements too. And then too, just raising, I know for me, it's like raising a son too. It's just like, even though he can't help, sometimes these out of body experiences where he is being physical aggressive to his mom or to his sister, it's just like for me, it's just like certain things I don't want to tolerate. And I'm just being frank. Like, you're a boy that will one day be a man, and we're not going to tolerate hitting your mom or your sister because that's not what we're supposed to do. And so I know there's a lot of things that I've learned through, ABA and other things like that, but just sometimes in those moments, a lot of that learning's go out the window. It's like, well, you better get yourself together type of thing. So yeah, it's that type of stuff too that I think. But I know we have learned over time um, just how we raise, and we both have the same thing in common. We want the best for our kids too.
and I guess kind of piggybacking on that, and you may get into this later, but how do you work with your relationship with your wives if you have different kind of priorities? Like as you said, like yours was, you're going to be a man, you don't hit women. They're like, oh, whatever. That's the way he's communicating. Like, how do you deal when you have those different priorities of thing?
that's a good question too. I I'll just use this analogy about our marriage in general is whoever's seen The Notebook about those characters is that they just tell each other like it is. They fight, they make up, they move on. And that's just how Katie and I's relationship in general is that we just tell each other how we're feeling. Could be about William, could be about our other kids, could be about whatever. We're gonna sometimes go at it, and then we're gonna move forward. It's this constant mentality of we are a unit. We don't always like each other. We always love each other. And the divorce rate in general is high, but in particular for the special needs marriages is in the 80 percentile, 80 percentage somewhere in there of divorce rate because of that added stress that couples go through. And so when we differ, we we wrestle through it and we move forward. And I think, and I'll just end with this, my grandfather, who never got to see William, they were married for almost 50 years when my grandmother passed. That was the only thing that separated them. And I asked him the same question on two different occasions after she passed, and he gave me the exact same answer. And I think this can apply because out of all the marriage conferences, out of all the books, whatever it is, he was a country boy, no high education. He said this. I agreed with what she did. She agreed with what I did. We didn't have much money, but we knew we were going to make it. And I think what lies in there that can be applied in particular to couples on the special needs journey is simplicity of you just keep it simple, you argue, you make up, but this never ends. And when you just say, We ain't going anywhere. We ain't quitting. We're going to be pissed off at each other. We're not going to like each other, but we will always love each other. Simple, simple is powerful. And my grandfather, who never got to see his special needs grandson, who my son William carries on his name in his middle name, I think that's where it lies.
That's good,
Okay.
Nathan. And just to your point, like nothing's ever going to be perfect. And I
Mm.
think at the end of the day, to that point too, it is. You're going to trial and error. You're going to argue. You're going to fight. But at the end of the day, we both know we want what's best for each other and best for the kids. And I think that's what keeps, I know, our relationship stronger too. That keeps that bond together and just being intentional with each other too. I mean, being honest about how are you feeling today. And
Mm.
your wife may not understand at times or vice versa. And I may not understand, but at the end of the day, we both have each other's best interests at heart.
And each one's going to bring something to the table.
Mm-hmm.
That it's like a my mom makes I got some Italian blood. My mom makes a good lasagna. And there's different ingredients that go in that. And that's the same thing with parenting a special needs child is that when it's going when it's going the right way and a good dish comes out, it's going to have both all the ingredients in there. And that takes Katie and that takes me. When it's both going, you know, it's gonna be perfect. No, like Brandon said, no, it's maybe gonna burn that lasagna. It's gonna be a little bit, too crispy or something like that. But both bring something that is essential to parenting. For instance, our William, and we can get into this later too. But I want to make sure just we before we end tonight. I know we got plenty of time, but that we do touch on the subject of, in particular, being a dad to both neurotypical and special needs children together, because that's a real important subject matter. But I'll save that for a little later.
Okay. And then I guess one more question just before we move on, and then I'll let you do your slides and go on, is thoughts on, you talk about like ABA as a therapy. What about things like therapy dogs, companion dogs, or, kind of those canine, there to help kids and really help build that independence and thing.
We don't have a dog, but I know Sage has been asking for one, and I'm a huge advocate for him to have one because I do feel like there's a lot of independence he can learn and just responsibilities. We haven't got to that stage yet,
Yeah.
so I really can't say anything about that.
We,
Okay.
we got I'll kind of answer that in twofold. We looked into a therapy dog in the past, and I'm not an expert in resources on that, so I won't act like I am. But the avenue we were looking at was crazy expensive, crazy expensive. Then there was another avenue that was not expensive, but there it wasn't like, okay, boom, we're gonna get it. Okay, we'll start next week. A waiting process, and it's which is not bad, but there's just different avenues there for William. And this also goes to where a child falls on the spectrum. For William, we got a golden doodle sometime last year, and um, it's a cool journey that William has had with that dog. The dog loves William, always did, but his relationship with the dog has grown to where he will enjoy playing around with Gator. That's our dog's name. I went to TC. My wife went to Florida. We named our dog Gator. We're in enemy territory in Georgia, so we gotta fight. But depending on the child, it can be a good thing that kind of goes along with socialization in a sense, because the child can learn how to grow in a relationship um, and deal with that and enjoy it as well. So for us, it's been a good thing. And a
Okay.
golden doodle in particular, one they don't shed, and patience. If you're going to get a dog for a child with autism, don't get a dog that's going to be apt to be aggressive in any sense of the word when a child is, say, grabbing on or anything of that matter.
Okay. I think that's it for questions for now. More will kind of
Good
pop up
questions.
probably as you're talking, but I'd love to hear more about your experiences and what you guys have built together.
Yeah. So I guess I'll like Nathan, you can go ahead and share, but I can kind of
Okay.
give the background and then I'll let you kind of take the slides too. So kind of talking more about community and why community is very important. And so kind of for me during that dark period of time and trying to figure out ways to connect with other fathers who are on this journey, I had put something out in a Facebook group for dads who are on this journey with us, and just saying like, hey, I would love to connect with those dads who live in the Metro Atlanta area. Got a good response. But also during that research period, I saw Nathan also doing some amazing things in the community too. And so we connected and came together and was just like, you're doing the same thing, I'm doing the same thing. How do we kind of come together and build something a little more powerful together? And so that's really how the village was formed. The village is really an opportunity for us to meet with other dads who are on this journey. So far, it's been a beautiful melting pot of dads in different type of backgrounds. You have single dads, you have dads who are on the spectrum, you have black dads, white dads, Hispanic dads. You have, just a whole group of people who are coming together and to build this brotherhood of together. So, Nathan, I'll let you take the next slide too.
Okay. There it is. All right. Yeah, just picking off of what Brandon said, it's better to do something together like this, and especially too since we live in different parts of the Metro Atlanta area. And so and I think one of the beautiful things, again, just to kind of piggyback, Brandon, off of what you said, is that race, religion, even part of the journey, whether it's a younger child, an older child, there's a common thread that goes through the whole thing, even though every child is different. And that's the beauty of what we're trying to create. But it's not just us; it's other dads coming to be a part of it. And so, uh, Brandon and I have stories that we've shared. These other dads have storied, and so there are society has made progress with resources, with availability, whether it's medicine, whether it's therapy, whether it's in the school system, although the school system is a whole other topic because it resources, depending on what county you're in, a whole other subject matter. We'd be happy to discuss that aside from this conversation. But there's still so much more left, so much more progress that needs to be made. And men in general, painting a broad stroke here, regardless of whether it's special needs or not, are just less likely to be intentional in making time for other relationships with men that are beyond just surface level of talking about struggles, admitting, man, I'm struggling with this, and not just talking from a, man, I did this, and it all worked, and here's my advice. And that's not what the village is about. It's about giving and receiving. And so, in particular on special needs, isolation can take place within dads, and that can manifest in different ways. And so, who we are is to create that space for dads to enter into, to share with other dads who get it, to be encouraged, to be equipped, and to also speak into other dads' lives. And so, it's this beautiful kind of holistic approach to things. Brandon,
No, I think that, I mean, that's to the point. I think it was also just kind of what you mentioned. Moms tend to have spaces and dads do not. So that we felt like this space was needed for fathers to be a part of this experience with us.
And real quick before we go to the next slide, you can see this picture of our families. And the component of siblings, I'll just say it here, is so important from a dad perspective too, of teaching our kiddos who are neurotypical, having them grow up in an awareness of, like, for instance, our kiddos are young, so we've, told them, hey, William's brain is different. And so they grow up with that reality that they can carry them out into the world. I mean, just like Brandon is doing as well. But we don't want our kids to also feel a burden with their sibling as well. Family is family. So they're going to be there to support William. But at the end of the day, that's not their responsibility. It's ultimately Katie's and I's, but it's helping our children. And this is a path, we're on. We haven't arrived yet. As a dad, to see that their brother is different, to speak up for their brother, and to care for their brother, while also the challenge is not basically saying, okay, making them feel that William can just do whatever. And trust me, he doesn't. Katie and I get on to him. So that is also a struggle with being a parent in general and being a dad of both worlds colliding. It's a beautiful collision, but it is a part of the journey as well. So why we started the village, we kind of talked on that. Brandon, you want to hit on even just the that support that even when it's just not talking about autism.
Yeah, and to that point, just to kind of talk about some of these bullet points, it's really fathers often carry the journey quietly. Support spaces are usually family focused, kind of we talked about, and honest conversations between dads are rare. And so, what Nathan and I have created is really a space, we encourage dads not to just talk about your kids who are on the spectrum. Let's just talk about sports. Nathan and I connected the other day and we talked about Nintendo and how big of the fans and stuff, so it's creating that space where sometimes we don't want to talk about our kids. We just want to have a community of dads that we do have this commonality together, but it's also an opportunity for us to continue to build a brotherhood outside of just talking about our kids too. And so, there's days where dads come and just say, I had a rough day today. It was rough with my child today. And there's other times where we're talking about other things too, but really kind of creating this safe space for fathers to really just show up and be authentic and just be there for each other.
Yeah, yeah, and these dads bring different giftings too, and different ideas and thoughts. I mean, in particular, one of the guys in this picture, Mike, came up with the idea of doing a book club, and so we've been started that of reading that, and then we're going to have our first discussion um, tomorrow evening virtually. And so the whole part of a village too is that's bringing different uh, backgrounds together that can we're better together than we are separately. Um, and so again, we've kind of talked about this. Our hope on the bottom left, if you see that, so we're based obviously in Metro Atlanta, and part of our of Brandon and I's vision is that, and we're of course in the infant stages right now, but that the villages will multiply, and so based on proximity, for instance, there'll be a village here, and I'm just going to throw this out: East Atlanta, West Atlanta, North and South, because proximity is vital to relationships. We do a mix of both, and you'll see this later, virtual and in person um, uh, gatherings, but nothing beats face to face. And so our hope is that there will be pockets of the village, and then those pockets will meet, let's say, once or twice a year to all come together to fellowship, to be renewed, to be equipped, but that those would function kind of separately throughout the year. They'll have leaders in those groups to build relationships out of proximity, and then who knows where it'll go beyond Atlanta. We've also connected with the group actually where I grew up in Houston that is doing a wonderful thing. And so it's even important that we don't silo off, that we realize, hey, what can we do together for the betterment of dads and society in general when it comes to autism awareness.
Yeah, Nathan, that was good. Because that is our hope and our dream is really pushing dads and encouraging dads. Like to Nathan said earlier, like he lives like in the Dunwoody area. I live in Smyrna. Of course, we come together a lot for a lot of our events, but wouldn't it be great to have a village here in Cobb County or have a village in Gwinnett or Fulton, and really encouraging these dads to really take lead in building community within their own communities or building these villages with their own villages. So that is definitely one of our goal and one of our hopes too.
And just to say this last thing before going on the next slide is that I had a professor years back. He shared this quote that he had, and it goes like this, is that you can never say you didn't have time. Yeah, you did. You just chose to do something else. Now, that something else, he said, that this professor may have been of greater priority, but we just can't ever say that the music excuse I didn't have time. And part about the village is just dads making time. You can't do everything. And no dad should ever feel guilty about, man, I couldn't do this or I couldn't do that. Just be intentional on doing something, finding out what that something is that you can be involved with, for instance, within the village, and then taking that step and out of intentionality, then there's that relationship. And out of that relationship, there's support. And out of that support, there's help for just living this journey. And so at the end, we'll just kind of share some, just a little bit of practicality for everyone listening, no matter where you fall in this journey. But out of that intentionality can really be a beautiful thing. Why it matters. There you go, Brandon.
I mean, we kind of already touched a lot of this already. It really is for us to connect with other dads who truly understand what we're going through. And I think also at this time period, dads do feel very isolated. I mean, fathers, at the end of the day, sometimes we give so much to other things and to other people, to our families, to our jobs. We're not taking the time to pour it back into ourselves and make time for ourselves. And so this is what the village is us pouring back into each other, but also learning from each other too. We talk a lot about, therapies. My Sage is in art therapy that, educating, not educating people, but sharing our experiences with people. Medication is also sometimes a controversial topic, but medication works for us, and would love to, if someone asks a question about this type of medication, let's talk about it. But it's really given us an opportunity to really learn and grow from each other in this space, but not necessarily just about our children, but how do we grow emotionally as men to make sure that we are supporting each other and depending on each other in this journey that we're going through. And at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
end of the day, we're not experts. At the end of the day, this is all trial and error. There's some things that work for me that may not work for Nathan, and vice versa. But it's just like we're all learning together.
No, that was good. And even on this journey, Brandon and I, who didn't know each other till last year, have become like legit friends. And he's able to not only come at a different perspective with the village, but he's been able to speak to me as a dad to a dad with something I needed to hear. Um, and that is why it's so important. Dads need to have a space where they can knock out any pride,
Mhm.
say, I sucked as a dad today, and then be encouraged for tomorrow. And then also get a resource, whether it's a child care or like Brandon was saying, medication, all those things, basic things that I may not know, but another dad may, or Brandon may, and then we can help each other. And that's and also I can't. I'll share this too. We had with June being a National Men's Health Awareness Month, we had a virtual gathering last week, and the guy who was joining us, his name is Kay Camp. He is owner of an Orange Theory locally, and one of the things he spoke at the gathering, and he's not a special needs parent, and that's the beauty of things too. We'll have speakers that are on both sides. He said you can't pour from an empty cup. And so dads, and of course moms too, it's not a selfish thing to take time to have your cup filled up some. So that you can be a better individual, a better dad, a better husband, a better friend, all those things. But again, it takes intentionality. Just like if you're thirsty, you got to take time to pour something into your cup to drink. It's the same thing when it comes to being a dad from an emotional and mental and physical standpoint. So here are some things, and I'll let you share on as far as like what we do.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, to Nathan's point earlier too, a lot of our things have been mixed. A lot of things we're learning as we're growing. We have done things as like at a Chick-fil-A as a meetup several times. We recently, as of was it last week or the week before Father's Day weekend, we had met up in Dunwoody or Sandy Springs to do a walk together, just a walk and talk with each other too. But we've also had just gatherings. We met up at a burger spot that was called the Village Burger, which was very high end for that type of thing too.
Well, and I real quick, I didn't even like put two and two together until we were there and someone mentioned it, and I was like, oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then we've also had, experts come and talk to us too. We've had a dad that is a pastor here, not necessarily the religious aspect, but just how him and his wife has also navigated raising a child. And from his perspective, we've also had a psychiatrist come and kind of talk to us just about the importance of mental health. And Dr. Sean Hurt does not have a child that's on the autism spectrum, but being able to pour into us and then as Nathan mentioned, just about the whole health and wellness piece of being a man in this journey too. And I know Nathan also does. I have to give Nathan credit on a lot of these flyers and really executing a lot of this work. And I just want to publicly and personally just tell you thank you for everything that you do.
well, I mean, right back at you. This is a team effort. I mean, the Flyers, AI, man, and you're the one that got me onto AI to use it. So, and anyone hearing this, I mean, the mindset that Brandon has, and the wisdom that he has, I mean, it truly is a team effort. There was an avenue we were looking at going down to help with the village, and it wasn't a bad avenue, but it was not the right one for us. And he really spoke into that to pause and for us to talk and pivot and not go down that. So it goes back to community. It really does. That it is. We were not made. This is regardless of being a special needs dad or not, to live apart from community. We simply were not made for that. And so isolation it breeds unhealthiness mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all those things. Plus, you just don't know it all and you just can't do it all. And so having community is so essential and giving dads options on things to do, whether it is a book, whether it is a meal, whether it is a breakfast, whether it is a dinner, whether it's this speaker, whether it's that speaker. We're going to do one next week that a couple is going to be speaking. They've been walking this journey for a while, and they're going to be able to speak into both moms and dads. Of course, single parents are welcome to join, but that specific gathering is going to be kind of more prone to couples to speak into their lives, to encourage them and help that relationship to continue and not fall apart with the stresses that come. So our goal is to hit on, although our vision is specific to dads, not leaving out the wives, not leaving out the children either. But again, a dad, of course, just like a mom, cannot pour from an empty cup. So providing opportunities for these dads to fill their cup. And just again, Brandon, dude, it's been such man, tremendous blessing just being a friend with you, dude, and now being able to share this. And the thing is, and I'll end with this, is that if you guys notice, one of us is white, one of us is black. And that's like, and I know we've talked about this, but I think it's so important. The beauty of the village is bringing people together of different backgrounds in a world where everything can be divisive. This is the beauty of it, and this is the beauty of embracing what is different instead of looking at differences and putting people into boxes. So anyway, there's our contact information as well. I'm uh, feel free to reach out to us for any and everything, even if it's not specific to dads. We'll try to point you in the right direction, and I'll shut up now and I'll end something before we call it a night.
The last thing I'm going to say too, for those who are listening, and even with the recording that's going to go out, please share this with a dad,
Yeah.
because I do think that the more dads that are part of the village, the more connection and support that they feel like they can have too. So that is my encouragement. Please share our information to other dads who need community, and we're happy to here to support.
Thank you both. And just a couple of questions. One is there's a lot of talk in like the professional world. We talk a lot about how do we support moms? How do we, we kind of focus a lot on moms, as we've said, so what is like one or two things you wish communities better understood about being a father of a child with autism or even a child with special needs? And how can we as professionals and communities support fathers better?
That's a deep question. That's good. Take a step back there. That's a very interesting question when it comes to the professional community. I think it starts with just what you are asking and just awareness that there is a different, we talked about different processing system. There's different processing system amongst dads too. And so um, linking, growing in an awareness starts with asking a question and then from that having a dialogue. So if the professional or wants to grow in that, talking with dads about it. I mean, obviously, for instance, Brandon and I'd be happy to do that, but that awareness grows from dialogue, and then after dialogue, then can come equipping, and that's how you implement things.
I think also coming to a place of understanding, I would say, because just because you're not living the same experience doesn't necessarily mean that you may not fully understand, but I think also just having empathy or having a walk in our shoes type of situation. Like, if you see somebody unhoused, just because you're not part of that experience doesn't necessarily mean that you don't understand or feel what that person could possibly be going through. And I think I think what I've realized just in this journey, if it's not affecting me or not affecting the other person, people don't really want to be step up or have any awareness. And I think to that point, to Nathan was just saying, is that awareness key is very important. Asking questions, how you can support. Sometimes we don't have necessarily have the answers, but if you have a resource or anything like that, share that opportunity for a dad or for a father and things like that too, because dads sometimes don't know. And what we don't know is we can't help each other in that aspect.
And just to say one more thing is that no action is going to take place a lot of the times till it becomes personal. And
Yeah.
so narrowing even it down from the professional standpoint, if you're in the professional world, taking it down to just your individual self and just talking with a dad that's living in that world. And then once it becomes personal for you, then it'll carry on into your professional world of trying to build awareness wherever you work, wherever your spheres of influence lie. Um, Even as simple as when you're out and you see a dad with a child, um, they're not going to get, well, paint a broad stroke. I would not get offended if you saw me with William. You're like, hey, man, please don't take this the wrong way, but I sense, that your son may or may not have autism, and hey, I just want to learn more. I would love to engage with a person like that rather than a person that's just going to be a jerk and just stare. So now, you use some discernment there, of course, but make it personal, and then making it personal can then lead to awareness, growth, and action steps.
Okay, then another question. If anyone who's watching has questions, you can put them in the chat and we'll ask them. And I see there's one there, I'm going to get to it, but kind of like following this kind of thread, what do you wish you knew when you started this journey? And what advice would you give to a dad who's at the beginning of the journey? Um,
I think the key thing that Nathan always says, you're not alone in this journey. And I think sometimes we think that, I know for me, I thought I was the only one dealing with this or feeling this way. But I think what the village has allowed me to realize that I'm not in this journey by myself. There are people who get it. I think you just have to also take that step to build that community and not necessarily wait for it, search for it, there are people out there like us who get what you're going through, and we can support each other through anything that we're currently going through.
Hmm. Two things goes back to what I said that I struggle with is that let it go. Like letting it go will help your mental side of things, and then embrace it as a beautiful mystery. That this is not something that's a curse. It's not something that you did wrong. Your child does not need to be cured. They are beautiful how they are, and they can teach you. So embrace it as a beautiful mystery as you advocate, as you look for resources. And I was never a big, I never really got into friends, but there's that part where pivot, 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 and just embrace the pivot because it's going to be a journey of pivots.
And then here's a question, probably more for Brandon because you went through it than Nathan. But like when you were going through the diagnostic process, what parts were helpful and which parts were not helpful to you as a dad versus like coming from a mom's perspective, do you think?
That's a good question. I'm actually trying to think from that perspective. I have to think deeper into that. I just remember, I don't even think I looked at it deeper, like why they diagnosed him or looked at the paperwork that deep. I think just seeing that he was autistic kind of just threw everything else out the window for me at that time period. Like I said, I think when it did happen from a different perspective, my wife was just like, "What do we do next?" And I'm like thinking I'm kind of in panic mode. So I think it was more of her keeping the same, like this is it. I mean, we can't do anything about it. Like we can't ship him off somewhere. So what are we going to do to take that next step? So she was a lot more proactive and kind of figuring out the next steps than I was. But I think, eventually, of course, I came around really kind of understanding what we need to do to really help him and put him on the right journey. And I think the blessing was that we did get him diagnosed very early. And so I'm glad we did not wait or listen to other people around us saying that he will grow out of this situation. But very, very grateful for my wife in that aspect too.
Yeah, and just to add one little thing, not like you said, can't speak into that specific part, but I think just for any dads listening to this or just anyone in general, is keep the focus. And I'm preaching to myself, but keep the focus where it needs to be. For instance, with William, he can't talk, and some people just in general, have kind of focused on that aspect of him. Someone saying, "Man, I'm going to speak basically into speak it into existence, something like that, or whatever the case was, that he's going to talk." And for me and Katie, it's never been our goal that he could talk.
Mhm.
Our goal has been that he can be able to communicate, and he has grown in that aspect. So keeping the focus where it needs to be. Now, if he could talk, yeah, that would be helpful. Although he might say some words that I've said that wouldn't be good for him to repeat. But focus on what is going to be is both beneficial for your child and for you and your wife. Because at the end of the day, if we were to focus on speech, who cares? Focus on the big picture.
And then I'm going to paraphrase one of the questions in the chat, but who in your family becomes kind of the disciplinarian? And do you tend to have not different, but kind of like more relaxed discipline for your children with autism versus your other kids, or do you kind of just have it the same all the way around? And, like how do you discipline your kids?
Hmm.
Eh,
Dang, that's a really good question.
I mean, I'm firm. I am not gonna lie. Um, I know. Hopefully, this doesn't offend anybody, but sometimes I try for Sage. For me, I know he has a disability, but I try to not make that disability his story all the time. So there's certain just expectations that he can do. He can clean up his room. He's learning how to make up his bed. You know, emotional aspects and things like that. He had a tantrum yesterday. I'm like, look, I'm not gonna sit here and fight you. Either we're gonna do this or we're gonna do that. And so I do think I am firm and strict. I'm not giving him whoopings or anything like that. But as far as discipline, if he doesn't do something, I guess not the right way, but if he's misbehaving in a way where he knows better, I mean, life has consequences at the end of the day too. So it's also teaching him like, hey, we have this expectation. If you don't do it, there's a consequence that's going to be attached to it. There's a good consequence and there's a bad consequence. And so sometimes if it's a bad consequence, it's like, hey, there's no tablet time, there's no electronic time for now, or we're not going to play with toys. You have to do this. Like, you have to go to therapy. You can whine and cry all you want to, but we're going to have to do this. You don't want to eat your food. I'm not going to fix you another meal at times. You're going to have to try and eat this food. And I know some parents may look at that differently, but that's just how, my wife and I are kind of on this journey with him right now too. And I mean, it has helped. It's just like, okay, well, I have to do what I need to do in this time period. Does it work all the time? No, he will still get mad, but eventually he'll come around. And also just teaching him how to advocate for himself. Like, if you're feeling upset, you don't have to have a tantrum. You don't have to, I encourage you to express how you feel, but there's healthy ways of expressing yourself, and there's also not so healthy ways too. So if you need a hug, ask for a hug, and then even when he complains about therapy, I'm like, Sage, well, we have to work on these emotions. And if we get these emotions under control, then we can talk about transition into something else. And so just really, and I treat my daughter the same way too. There's like not a difference between the two, because what I don't want is her, even though Sage is different in a way, I still want her to feel like, they're still under the Gardner household. And so there's just certain levels of things that we have to do as a family, as a unit together.
Yeah, for us, we both my wife and I, have our strict moments, and for instance, say William's doing something, okay, we're going to have a timeout, so we're not just going to be able to continue to do what we're doing. If there's something happening at the table, okay, we're going to remove, say it's breakfast and we're kind of having some emotional disruption there. Okay, all right, we're not going to eat breakfast till we calm down. So having some different, in a sense, some consequences regarding our action. And yeah, I mean, our neurotypical kids, they get consequences. William gets consequences. So um, obviously, there's a difference in the processing. There's a difference, and that has to be obviously acknowledged. But there's also each world is going to have consequences for their actions as well. So yeah, but my wife and I will be different, but yet we're both when it comes to parenting in general, we certainly have our both strict moments, and it's not like, well, when dad speaks, the kids listen. No, no, no. When mom and dad both speak, they're gonna listen. So it's a co-parenting thing that I think is vital. Not that we're the same, but we're on the same team.
And do you think, on that kind of vein, do you think you have, you both said you're kind of strict or firm. Do you think you're more firm with your sons because they're boys than you are with your daughters? Just like with some of the behaviors and things like that.
For me, no. Yeah,
I
yeah.
I mean, to a certain extent, it's not. I don't think it's just because it's a boy and girl thing. I do think my wife and I, we do try to treat them equally, but from a dad's perspective or from my perspective, I think again, Sage has a physical and verbal aggression. So of course, I feel like my daughter is not yelling and screaming and throwing things at us, and so I am probably a little bit more firmer with him just because of that expectation. But I know I don't mentally think just because he's a boy or she's a girl, I'm gonna let my daughter get away for stuff too. It's like, no, my daughter could be a little sneaky at times too, in recognizing that. But I think just certain, again, aspects that Sage goes through that I do feel like I may have to be a little bit more, I guess, firmer with him in those situations. But discipline wise, I do feel like they're kind of on the same page on that.
Okay. And then I don't see any other questions coming in. So one last question. unless someone else has something they want to say. But what is something your sons have taught you over the years?
Hmm. I know for me, oh, you go ahead, Brandon.
No, go ahead.
William could give two flips when anybody thinks about him. And there's really a beauty in that. How often do I go about my life and, oh, Carol, what's this person going to think? What's that person going to think? And William goes about his day. And he's got this amazing spirit about him. And that's one in particular thing that if I would be the student in this role and learn from him in that sense, it would do me well because he does not care what someone is thinking about him, what they're looking at him, what any of that. He lives in that sense free. And there's freedom in not caring. And I don't mean not caring about people, but not caring about what people think about you that releases you uh, to live without being shackled by what you think people's perceptions are of you.
That's good, Nathan. I think for me, patience is one.
Mm.
Um, I think just emotional aspects too. Like I feel like, for me growing up, I wasn't really taught how to handle my emotions. And so I would keep a lot of things bottled and blocked in. And I think even though Sage has these big emotions, but also just teaching him on how to have healthy emotions has also helped me too. How do you articulate how are you truly feeling? Because I was never asked like, how do you feel, son? And I think that bond between us, and then just Sage is he's just a wonderful kid at the end of the day. His imagination, the way that his brain just works when it comes to like storytelling with his toys and his creativity has just made me have a lot more empathy in a way. But just that bond between a father and son that I didn't have with my dad growing up. And so
Mm.
really just kind of meeting him where he is and breaking that, I would say that generational curse, I would say, between dads and sons in my family and really instilling like, you know what, we're gonna get through this together. Like every time we read this book recently, like the Bob Marley song, like everything is gonna be okay. And so every time that he has big emotions, it's like, Dad, I need a hug. And we just say,
Mm.
like, everything is going to be what? Okay. And so it's just like, it's just those powerful moments and realizing that with each other.
Mm. That's good, man. That's solid.
Well, this was great information. I mean, I loved hearing your stories. The village, I think is really great, and it is a resource I'm going to add to my resources to send out to um, everyone that I interact with on that. I think it's great. And I know one thing we talked about when we were kind of setting this up, and I just can't remember your answer. Does the village doesn't have an age cap? Like it can go all ages. Like parents of fathers of adult kids can come
Yeah.
in and
That's the
Absolutely.
beauty of it. I mean, like to the point earlier, we have all types of dads. We have dads who've been on this journey way longer than we have. That's the beautiful part about the village is dads from all over, all types of dads.
Yeah, because each part can speak into something. Even if someone's been living it a lot longer, they can maybe be a little bit encouraged, or something. It's that full circle. If the right perspective is there. Um, and Michael, before we close, you tell me when to share. Could I share one more thing before we close? But you tell me when. I don't want to overstep you if you had something to say.
no, I'm kind of done. I've asked my questions, asked the questions in the chat. So anything you have to add, I mean, we'd love to hear it. So
Okay, I'll just be brief. First, thank you for inviting us to this. And actually, we were able to meet you via Sean, who Dr. Hurt he spoke for one of our groups. So again, it's like it's this community of people that are willing to step into this world. So thank you. And for anyone listening, just kind of share both sides of the coin. For everyone, just live with open arms. If you're a dad on this journey, and be intentional, be open, and be a giver and a receiver to give encouragement, to give advice when needed, but to also receive those things. If you're a dad, man, come on in. Like the door's open. Um, the door's open. And we just encourage you to step into it. It's not like we're getting a commission off of this. It's not like, more dads we get, well, the richer we get. No. Like this is a lifelong mission for us to build this community. There's not like a charge to join. You just walk on in. Wherever you are at the journey, you are welcome. Like Brandon said, man, if you know a dad, just share it. And then if you're on the other side of the coin to where you're not a dad of a special needs child, would you just maybe take steps to create awareness? If you already are aware, like taking steps to help other people, because again, when we bring both worlds together, a lot more good can happen.
Amen to
Yes.
that. That's a good note to end it on.
Good. And thank you again for agreeing to do this. Um, Again, it was something I'd heard of the village, but didn't really know what it was. And then when we had met, I was like, oh, I can't wait to hear more about this and, your journeys and all that. And I think sharing your lived experience is really helpful for people, dads that have kids on the autism spectrum and dads that don't, just kind of going through and knowing that there is a group out there that can support dads because I think they tend to, as you had said, get overlooked or don't go out and seek the encouragement or support that moms tend to do because moms are usually with their kids more and they meet each other up and they just talk. And you know, men tend not to talk as much on that level. So this is a great opportunity for
Hmm.
people. So thank you.
Well, thank you. It was
Thank you so
fun
much.
being here. It was
Yeah,
it was an honor to do it.
thank you so much.